So your heart rate is at like 110 beats per minute.
Oh, yeah. Palms are definitely actively sweating.
Exactly. You're standing in the middle of this brightly lit cavernous room, and someone behind a tall desk is just staring at you.
Just waiting for you to speak.
Right. And you aren't in a hospital waiting for a diagnosis. You're not, I don't know, an actor who just forgot their lines on a Broadway stage.
No, you're just at Terminal B.
You're at Terminal B, and you just forgot the English word for suitcase.
It is, honestly, the ultimate collision of high stakes and cognitive overload. Like, when you're operating in a second language, the environment itself basically becomes a hostile variable.
Yeah, cool.
You're no longer just translating vocabulary. You are trying to survive this massive onslaught of sensory and logistical pressure.
Which is exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We're talking directly to you, the learner.
Yeah.
Because whether you are listening right now, curled up on your couch, or, maybe you're navigating a busy commute, we know you're constantly absorbing new information. And today, our mission is to deconstruct one of the most universally terrifying experiences for anyone learning a new language.
The airport check-in counter.
The airport check-in counter. Just saying, it makes me stressed out.
It really does. But to do this, we are analyzing a really brilliant session from the language learning show Barking English.
Yeah, hosted by Leo and Mia.
Right. And their guide for this episode, which they called Checking Into the Airport, is just this fascinating study in practical linguistics.
It is. And because Leo and Mia designed their materials specifically for English learners, we are adopting their core philosophy today.
Which means we're keeping our pacing deliberate.
Crystal clear. We're stripping away the convoluted jargon, focusing on highly accessible language. We want to ensure you can absorb the mechanics of these interactions without feeling overwhelmed by some flood of academic noise.
So we're just going to take a deep breath and walk through those sliding automatic doors together.
Yes. Let's talk about those sliding doors, actually.
Okay.
Because that's really the psychological threshold, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The source material spends a pretty significant amount of time establishing the physiological response that happens the exact moment a traveler enters the airport.
Yeah, it's not just regular nervousness.
No, it's an active fight-or-flight response.
Leo talks about this. He mentions how a traveler's heart rate just skyrockets instantaneously. The air conditioning hits your face, you hear those chaotic overlapping echoes of rolling suitcase wheels on the hard tile floors.
That specific sound.
Right, and your brain just shifts into sheer panic mode. The questions just start firing uncontrollably. Am I at the correct terminal? Did the taxi driver take me to the right airport entirely?
And Mia compounds this with a deeply relatable confession. I mean, she admits to physically checking her bag for her passport 5 times while she's still sitting in her living room.
5 times.
And then performing that exact same compulsive check 5 more times in the taxi.
Oh, I do the phantom pocket tap constantly.
The tap.
You feel the rectangular outline of the passport in your jacket, your brain registers it, and yet 3 minutes later, a completely irrational voice whispers, are you certain it isn't just a thick receipt?
Right. Did it magically turn into a napkin? But if we examine why this specific environment triggers such an intense universal stress response, it fundamentally comes down to the architecture of consequences.
The architecture of consequences. I like that.
Well, think about it. An airport is a uniquely high-stakes environment for the average person. It operates on strict, unforgiving timelines.
So true.
If you misread a single sign, if you go to Terminal 2 instead of Terminal 3, or if you actually do lose that passport.
The consequences are immediate.
Immediate, financially punitive, and logistically catastrophic. You aren't just embarrassed, right? Your entire trip is effectively ruined.
Yeah, and the environment itself is almost designed in a way that strips away your autonomy. Leo points to the departure board.
That massive glowing thing.
Right, that electronic monolith dominating the center of the hall, rapidly cycling through flight numbers and cities. He describes staring at it, completely paralyzed by the fear that the glowing letters next to his specific flight are suddenly going to flash canceled.
Or delayed.
Exactly.
I mean, the departure board is essentially a physical monument to your external locus of control.
Oh, wow.
Because once you step into the airport, you are entirely at the mercy of the airline's scheduling, global weather patterns, the mechanical integrity of a massive aluminum tube.
You've completely surrendered your agency.
You really have.
So you have the high stakes, you have the lack of control, and you're experiencing actual physiological stress.
Yeah.
So your working memory is already severely depleted just by walking into the building. And then the ultimate friction point arrives. You have to stop staring at the screens, stop frantically patting your pockets, and actually walk up to a counter to construct coherent sentences.
In a foreign language.
In a foreign language, with a human being who is actively evaluating you.
The agent calls for the next person in line, and your mind just goes entirely blank. And this is exactly where we see the concept of cognitive load theory in action.
Let's dive into cognitive load theory because, understanding the mechanics of your own brain is really the first step to overriding that panic.
Definitely. So
John Swoller's research in the late 80s kind of revolutionized how we understand learning and performance. He essentially argued that our working memory has a strictly limited capacity.
Right. Working memory is basically the mental scratch pad you use to process immediate information. So when you approach that agent, your brain is trying to decipher the ambient noise, remember your flight number, calculate the weight of your bag, and mentally translate your native language into English syntax.
It's just too much.
Your cognitive load is maxed out. You are operating at 100% capacity, so there is zero mental bandwidth left for actual communication.
Which makes the revelation from our source material so utterly fascinating. Because Leo and Mia introduced this massive perspective shift.
They do.
They argue that the check-in counter, despite feeling like the most dangerous place in the airport, is functionally the safest place in the entire building for a language learner.
And they introduce what we can label the predictability principle.
Right. And it sounds entirely counterintuitive, right? Like, how can the apex of your anxiety also be your safest harbor?
Yeah.
But Mia lays out the underlying logic. She says the check-in counter is a closed loop. The airline agents are not there to engage you in some sprawling, dynamic conversation about your life philosophy.
No, they're executing a highly rigid, repetitive corporate algorithm.
Exactly.
And human interactions in service environments follow strict scripts. Sociologists call this script theory. It was originated by Roger Schenck and Robert Abelson. Okay. We all carry these mental scripts for specific situations, right?
Like how to order at a restaurant.
Exactly, or how to behave in an elevator. And the check-in script is one of the most rigid in modern society. The agents want 3 very specific pieces of data every single time.
And the source deconstructs this transaction down to its studs. First, they want your passport to verify your identity.
Right.
Second, they want to know your final destination to route you through the system. And third, they want to weigh your physical bags to calculate fuel and spatial limits.
That is the entirety of the transaction.
That's it.
And once you recognize this underlying architecture, you drastically reduce what Sweller called the extraneous cognitive load.
Yeah.
You no longer have to translate on the fly or anticipate 1,000 different conversational branches.
Because you know what's coming.
Right. You know exactly what data points are required, which frees up your working memory to simply focus on delivering the lines.
Okay, I am going to push back on this framework just a little bit.
No.
Because life rarely adheres perfectly to theory.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like the fear learners have isn't about handing over the passport. It's about the anomaly. Like, what happens when the agent breaks the script? What if they ask one of those highly specific rapid-fire security questions? Like, has anyone unknown to you asked you to carry an item today?
Right.
Or have your bags been out of your immediate possession since you packed them? If a learner has only memorized a 3-step script, an anomalous question is going to shatter their confidence completely because it just wasn't in their mental textbook.
And that skepticism is entirely warranted. Anomalies definitely occur. The algorithm sometimes requires manual input.
Exactly.
However, the true value of mastering the predictable script isn't that it magically prevents unexpected questions. It's that it gives you the mental resilience to handle them when they arise.
Oh, I see. Because the baseline interaction is automated in your mind, you haven't exhausted your scratch pad.
Precisely. If handing over the passport and declaring your destination requires zero conscious effort, your cognitive load remains incredibly low. You are physically and mentally calm. Therefore, if the agent suddenly asks an anomalous question about whether your bag was left unattended, your brain actually has the available processing power to parse the vocabulary, deduce the context, or simply have the confidence to politely ask, "Could you please repeat that?" That's a great point. The language barrier shrinks when the baseline is predictable.
Knowing the script builds a psychological safety net. I love that. But the linguistic battle is only one half of the equation at the check-in counter, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The other half is intensely physical because we have to confront arguably the most universally dreaded piece of machinery in the travel industry.
The luggage scale.
The luggage scale. Mia brilliantly dubs this device the scale of doom.
It really is.
And the physical challenge of navigating an airport is deeply intertwined with the linguistic anxiety, yet it rarely gets discussed in language textbooks, you know?
Never.
You lug this massive, unwieldy suitcase up to the counter, you awkwardly heave it onto the metal conveyor belt, and then you just stand there holding your breath, staring at the little glowing digital display.
And the source material highlights a universal numerical threshold here. 23 kilos.
Which translates to roughly 50 pounds for those operating on the imperial system. And that number, that specific number, is the rigid boundary between being a competent, successful traveler and becoming a traveler in an active crisis.
Because the moment that digital display ticks over to 24 or 25 kilos, the scenario fundamentally shifts. It ceases to be a predictable private transaction and instantly becomes a highly stressful public event.
Oh, Leo illustrates this so vividly. He describes the phenomenon of the walk of shame.
The worst.
Your bag has failed the weight test. The agent informs you, usually with a completely flat affect, that there is a severe financial penalty, and suddenly you are forced to step to the side.
Yeah.
You have to lay your giant suitcase flat on the polished airport floor and unzip it in front of a sprawling line of deeply impatient strangers.
You are literally forced to expose your private domestic life in a sterile public space.
Exactly. You're digging frantically through neatly folded clothes, unearthing heavy boots, pulling out thick wool sweaters, and desperately trying to cram them into a tiny backpack.
It's a nightmare.
Leo even confessed in the episode that he once layered 3 heavy sweaters onto his own body simultaneously just to bypass the exorbitant baggage fee.
3 sweaters!
I know. You can only imagine the sheer discomfort of navigating terminal security wrapped in 3 layers of thick wool.
Right, and while it provides a comedic visual, it points to a much deeper sociological phenomenon. Like, why do we endure such extreme physical discomfort, like wearing 3 sweaters, just to avoid this scenario?
Yeah, why?
The aversion goes far beyond simply avoiding a $40 fee. The walk of shame triggers a massive loss of social face.
Well, let's talk about Irving Goffman's sociological theories on the presentation of self.
Yes.
Because we all wear a carefully constructed mask in public, right? We want to appear organized, affluent, and in control.
Especially at the airport.
Right. And when you are kneeling on the floor, wrestling with dirty laundry to save money, that mask completely shatters. You feel disorganized and intensely judged by the collective gaze of the people waiting behind you.
Which is exactly why mastering the precise English vocabulary of this specific crisis is vital. Language is the mechanism we use to restore our social face.
That makes total sense.
If you understand exactly what the agent is communicating regarding the weight limit, and you possess the linguistic tools to respond calmly, perhaps smoothly requesting a moment to rearrange your items rather than just panicking in silence, you reclaim your agency. You maintain your dignity in the face of the scale of doom.
Okay, so assuming we have survived the scale, and the impossibly heavy bags have been swallowed by the conveyor belt into the mysterious subterranean depths of the airport, the script moves to the next crucial decision point.
Right.
You have to negotiate the physical space you will inhabit for the next several hours. We enter the great seat debate.
Ah, yes. The hosts of Barking English utilize this debate incredibly effectively. They use the dichotomy of seat preferences to demonstrate how natural, colloquial conversation flows when individuals are passionately defending a mundane choice.
It's so true. We have 2 highly entrenched camps, Team Aisle and Team Window, and Leo and Mia act as the perfect avatars for these opposing philosophies.
They really do.
Let's examine Leo's argument for Team Aisle first. His entire rationale is built around pragmatism and physical mobility.
He argues that he is exclusively an aisle seat passenger because he consumes a significant amount of water during flights to combat the arid cabin air.
Hydration is critical at 30,000 feet. But, you know, on an aircraft, biological needs create complex logistical puzzles.
They do.
Leo requires the freedom to stand up, stretch his legs, and access the restroom repeatedly without having to engage in the incredibly awkward social dance of waking up a sleeping stranger and begging them to move. He prioritizes independence.
He is willing to sacrifice the view, and he is willing to risk having his elbow struck by the beverage cart in exchange for absolute bodily autonomy.
Now contrast that with Mia, who fiercely defends Team Window. Her argument discards mobility entirely in favor of rest and aesthetics.
Right. She argues that she fundamentally needs the physical curvature of the cabin wall to lean her head against in order to achieve sleep.
Yeah, and furthermore, she attaches an aesthetic and almost romantic value to the choice, stating that looking out at the cloud formations never gets old.
It's a great point. Choosing your seat at the check-in counter is essentially choosing a temporary lifestyle. It requires immense spatial awareness, like, do you value the pragmatic independence of the aisle, or do you desire the private, cozy, yet physically trapped sanctuary of the window?
It's a microenvironment selection. But to secure your preferred lifestyle, you must be able to articulate that preference to the agent clearly. Like, pointing at a seating chart and grunting is just insufficient.
Definitely. Which transitions us perfectly into a brilliant pedagogical tool that Leo and Mia introduce in the source material. They call them pocket words.
Pocket words. I love this.
The concept of pocket words addresses a fundamental flaw in how many learners approach vocabulary acquisition, because instead of attempting to memorize a massive, sprawling dictionary of travel terms, you curate a highly specific, functional microlexicon.
Think of it as a utility belt. You take these 5 essential words, put them in your mental pocket, and you only pull them out at the exact moment the script demands them.
Exactly.
And to fully honor the source material, we're going to extract these words from our pocket right now. And we aren't just going to define them, we're going to analyze their grammatical function and their spatial reality within the airport.
Let's do it. The first word we extract from the pocket is carry on.
Carry on. This is a fascinating compound word because it constantly shapeshifts grammatically depending on how you use it.
It operates fluidly as both a noun and an adjective.
Let's define its spatial reality first. The source material is very careful to distinguish this from the massive suitcase that triggered the walk of shame.
Right, very different.
A carry-on is the smaller piece of luggage. A backpack, a duffel, a tiny roller bag that you physically maintain possession of, you carry it on to the actual aircraft. It does not go into the cargo hold.
And Leo and Mia provide a clarifying example. Mia states she is packing a carry-on for a brief weekend trip to New York. In that syntactic structure, carry-on functions as a noun. It is the object itself.
Right.
However, you will frequently hear agents use it as an adjective, such as when they ask to inspect your carry-on luggage.
Right. Understanding this word is non-negotiable because the agent will always interrogate you about what you are bringing into the passenger cabin.
Yeah.
They have to enforce strict volumetric limits.
Which brings us to the second word in the pocket, a phrase that requires significant grammatical untangling for many learners. Check-in.
Ugh. The English language's reliance on phrasal verbs is notoriously brutal for learners.
It is.
The phrase check-in is a prime offender because it forces you to separate the abstract action from the physical location.
Precisely. To check in operates as a phrasal verb. It describes the abstract process of registering your arrival with the airline database and surrendering your cargo. For instance, you might say, I need to check in for my flight to London.
However, the physical piece of furniture where the agent sits, the literal desk, is a compound noun, the check-in counter. So geographically and grammatically, you walk to the check-in counter to check in.
It sounds absurdly repetitive to a non-native ear.
It really does. But isolating the verb from the noun in your mental map allows you to construct much clearer syntax when you are under pressure.
Okay. Our third pocket word is what Mia accurately describes as the golden ticket. The term is boarding pass.
This is the ultimate objective of the entire check-in script.
The holy grail.
Right. What is a boarding pass? It is the physical or digital document that legally authorizes you to cross the threshold of the aircraft door.
The linguistic evolution here is interesting, actually, because the terminology has lagged behind the technology.
How do you mean?
Well, historically, a boarding pass was exclusively a heavy, rectangular piece of cardstock printed at the counter. Today, the noun pass just as frequently refers to a pixelated QR code glowing on your smartphone screen.
Oh, right. But regardless of its physical state, the systemic rule is absolute. Without the boarding pass, your journey ends at the security checkpoint. The TSA scans it. The gate agents scan it. It is your localized proof of identity.
Yes.
Leo jokes in the source material about accidentally dropping it, highlighting the reality that if you lose it, you have to run all the way back to the check-in counter and restart the entire agonizing loop to get a new one.
That is true panic right there.
Yep.
Let us examine the fourth word in our pocket. The hosts refer to this as the dreaded adjective, overweight.
Oh, this word rockets us right back to the trauma of the scale of doom.
It does. It is a prime example of semantic narrowing based on context. In general, everyday English, the adjective overweight is typically applied to human biology, often used as a cautious or clinical descriptor for body mass.
But the moment you step through those automatic sliding doors, the word undergoes a complete contextual shift. It refers exclusively to the mass of your luggage.
Right.
If the agent looks at the scale, frowns, and says, "Sir, your bag is overweight, they are not commenting on your diet. They are officially declaring that your bag has breached the 23-kilo threshold.
The moment you hear that specific adjective, your brain needs to instantly pivot into problem-solving mode, knowing the walk of shame is imminent.
Finally, we reach the fifth pocket word, and this word is a masterpiece of linguistic chaos. It is the word aisle, specifically the aisle seat.
The orthography of this word, the way it is spelled, is a source of immense and justified frustration for English learners globally.
Let's spell it out so you can visualize the trap. A-I-S-L-E. You look at those letters, you apply standard phonetic logic, and your brain screams that it should be pronounced Aizul or Aisli.
The S is entirely silent. It serves absolutely no phonetic purpose.
Why does English do this? It feels like the language is actively trying to trick you.
It is a fascinating historical quirk, actually. The word actually traces back to the old French word aile, meaning the wing of a church, which itself came from Latin.
Okay.
By the time it reached Middle English, it was spelled perfectly phonetically as Ella. It made sense. But during the Renaissance, English scholars became obsessed with classical Latin.
Oh, no.
They erroneously believed the word originated from the Latin word insula, meaning island, so they forcefully shoved an S into the spelling to make it look more Latin, despite the fact that nobody pronounced it with an S.
So Renaissance scholars ruined the spelling for millions of modern language learners just to show off their Latin.
Basically, yes.
That is incredible and infuriating.
Exactly. You simply have to memorize the anomaly. The word is pronounced identically to the contraction I'll, as in I will. I'll.
So when you are declaring your allegiance to Team Aisle, you are asking for the seat immediately bordering the central walkway of the aircraft. You must remember to swallow that S completely.
So we have now curated our 5 pocket words: carry-on, check-in, boarding pass, overweight, and aisle. These nouns and verbs form the structural bedrock of the check-in script.
But having the vocabulary is not the same as having fluency. Direct translation is like trying to play a deeply complex new board game, but you are stubbornly insisting on using the rules of chess.
That's a great analogy.
The pieces might look vaguely similar, and you might understand the concept of moving across a board, but the permissible moves, the hidden mechanics, and the underlying strategy are completely different. If you try to force chess rules onto a new game, the entire system breaks down.
That is an excellent analogy for the limitations of direct translation. Your brain formulates a thought perfectly in your native tongue, swaps out the vocabulary for English equivalents, and outputs the sentence. It is logically sound, but functionally, it results in communication that sounds rigid and highly unnatural.
It makes you sound like a robot processing code.
Yeah.
The Barking English hosts address this directly in a brilliant segment they call Smooth It Out. They identify the clunky translated phrases and provide the tools to upgrade them into smooth, native-sounding English.
Let us examine the first major hurdle they identify, which involves how you communicate the transfer of your large luggage.
Right. So a learner relying entirely on direct translation might approach the desk, point to their massive 50-pound suitcase, and declare, "I want to give you my big bag." Or perhaps, "I want to put my big bag in the airplane."
And from a purely communicative standpoint, the agent understands the objective perfectly. There is no ambiguity.
But it is incredibly clunky. The English language, particularly within hyper-specific industries like commercial aviation, relies heavily on established idioms that entirely replace literal descriptions of physical actions.
The smooth native alternative that Leo and Mia provide is, "I need to check this bag," or "I'd like to check one bag."
We return to the pocket word.
Exactly.
In the airline lexicon, the verb to check completely swallows the physical concepts of giving, taking, or putting. When you say, "I'd like to check one bag," you instantly signal to the agent that you are not a confused tourist. You are a participant who knows the industry script. It is clean, efficient, and immediately establishes competence.
The second mistake they highlight moves beyond mere vocabulary and delves deep into the cross-cultural psychology of politeness. This occurs during the critical seat selection phase.
The clunky, directly translated phrase for claiming your territory is, "I want the seat next to the window."
Again, the grammar is technically flawless.
But functionally, in an English-speaking environment, it is a disaster.
Yes, it is.
Why? Because deploying the phrase, "I want," directly at a service industry worker lands like a physical blow. It sounds demanding, blunt, and bordering on rude, even that the speaker has the kindest intentions in the world.
To understand why, we have to look at politeness theory, specifically the concept of negative face. developed by linguists Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson.
A negative face.
Yes. Negative face is the universal human desire to be unimpeded, to not have demands forced upon you. When you say, "I want the seat," you are directly threatening the agent's negative face. You are imposing a demand on them.
Oh, that makes sense. And the source material offers a brilliant linguistic workaround, which they dub a magic phrase. The smooth upgrade is, "Could I get a window seat, please?"
Let's unpack the mechanics of that magic. English politeness relies intensely on modal verbs, words like could, would, and should.
So by swapping "I want," which is a blunt factual statement of desire,
Yeah.
for "could I get," which is an inquiry about a hypothetical possibility, you create linguistic distance.
Right.
You aren't demanding the seat. You are deferentially asking if the universe and the agent's authority might align to make it possible.
It provides the agent with an escape hatch. It softens the imposition entirely, protecting their negative face, which instantly makes you sound culturally fluent and deeply respectful.
"Could I get" is the ultimate multi-tool, really. You can deploy it universally. Could I get a coffee? Could I get a taxi? Could I get an aisle seat? It instantly smooths out your interactions.
Absolutely. The final clunky mistake involves the geographic terminology of the terminal itself, specifically how you locate the aircraft after the check-in loop is complete.
The directly translated question is often, "Where is the door for the airplane?" Or, wonderfully literal, "Where is the airplane waiting?"
The conceptual error here is mapping domestic architecture onto industrial transportation. You are treating the airplane like a taxi idling on a street corner or a bedroom with a standard wooden door.
The English language categorizes these spaces differently. The smooth, native phrase you need to deploy is, "Which gate is my flight departing from?" Or simply, "Which gate is it?"
The semantic field of the word gate versus door is crucial here.
An airport does not have doors that open directly onto planes. It has gates. Gate B12, Gate C4.
Right.
The gate encompasses the waiting area, the desk, and the mechanical jet bridge that physically connects the terminal architecture to the fuselage of the aircraft.
Yes.
If you ask an airport employee for a door, their brain will likely map that to an exit door, and they might accidentally direct you out of the building.
Exactly.
By using gate, you are aligning with the terminal's specific spatial geography.
So we have systematically constructed the psychological framework, isolated the lexical pocket words, and analyzed the pragmatic syntax required to smooth out the conversation. The Barking English hosts synthesize all of this by executing a live simulation, a mental dress rehearsal.
They perform a role play of the exact check-in counter interaction. But before we analyze the dialogue, Mia gives the listener a crucial instruction. She tells them to literally close their eyes and vividly imagine the chaotic environment of an international airport.
This is not just a theatrical flourish. It is rooted in neuroscience. Mental dress rehearsal is a profoundly effective tool for memory encoding.
Why does visualization work better than just staring at a list of vocabulary words on a flashcard?
Well, when you simply read words, you are utilizing a very narrow neural pathway. But when you close your eyes and actively construct the sensory environment, the humming of the fluorescent lights, the anxiety in your stomach, the visual of the agent typing on their keyboard, you engage mirror neurons and situational memory centers.
Wow.
You are essentially tricking your brain into believing it has already lived through the experience.
It is exactly how Olympic skiers memorize a downhill course before they ever strap on their skis. They are mapping the terrain in their minds.
Exactly. When you eventually face the real high-pressure situation, the cognitive load plummets because the brain recognizes the environmental context. It retrieves the associated language exponentially faster because the scenario feels familiar.
So let's map this terrain together. Let's walk through this role play beat by beat and watch the predictability principle operate in real time.
The simulation begins. Mia embodies the passenger, and Leo plays the role of the airline agent. Mia establishes the baseline data point. She is flying to Tokyo.
The script executes perfectly.
Yeah.
The very first action Leo takes is requesting her passport and pulling up her reservation on his monitor. The foundation is set.
The algorithm progresses to the second phase, luggage. Leo inquires if she will be checking any bags today.
This is where Mia deploys the upgraded syntax. She doesn't say, "I want to give you my bag." She smoothly states, "I'd like to check one bag, please."
Nailed it.
She utilizes the industry idiom perfectly. She then points to her backpack and cleanly identifies it using the exact pocket word, confirming she is keeping it as her carry-on.
We then transition to the physical challenge. Leo requests that the bag be placed on the scale.
Even in an audio roleplay, you can feel the tension. The scale of goom is activated. Mia waits. Leo reads the digital display, and the tension breaks. The bag weighs in at exactly 23 kilos.
Leo confirms the success using the specific, dreaded adjective in the negative. He states, "It is not overweight. The linguistic and physical hurdles have been cleared."
The algorithm moves to the final phase, the microenvironment. Leo asks if she has a seating preference.
Mia, a steadfast defender of Team Window, utilizes the modal verb structure to ensure her negative face is protected. She asks deferentially, "Could I get a window seat, please?"
Leo consults the system and grants the request, assigning her to seat 14A. He returns the passport alongside the newly minted golden ticket.
With the boarding pass secured, Mia executes the final smooth phrase to orient herself within the terminal geography. She asks, "Which gate is my flight departing from?"
Leo closes the loop. He provides the coordinates, gate B12. He issues the temporal deadline. Boarding commences at 10:15 a.m., and he directs her toward the security checkpoint. The interaction is complete.
Analyzing the pragmatics of that exchange, the pacing and the intonation reveal complete control. By layering the pocket words with the culturally calibrated smooth phrases, Mia completely bypassed the typical language learner panic.
She sounded native, not because she used complex SAT vocabulary, but because she adhered to the hidden script of the environment. She stepped onto that brightly lit theater stage and delivered the exact lines the other actor was waiting for.
It proves that linguistic anxiety in these environments rarely stems from a lack of general intelligence. It is almost entirely a symptom of contextual unpreparedness.
Once you map the context, the fear simply evaporates. Let's take a deep breath and recap this immense journey we have navigated today. We started at the threshold of panic, analyzing the physiological fight-or-flight response triggered by the sliding doors and the oppressive architecture of the departure board.
We explored John Sweller's theories on cognitive load, revealing how the rigid predictability of the check-in script is actually the mechanism that saves your working memory from collapsing.
We stared down the terrifying metal belt they called the Scale of Doom, unpacking the sociological vulnerability of the walk of shame, and why knowing the word overweight is the key to maintaining your public dignity.
We dissected the pragmatics of the airplane cabin, contrasting the mobility of Team Aisle with the static sanctuary of Team Window.
We loaded our mental utility belt with the essential lexicon: carry-on, check-in, boarding pass, overweight. And we uncovered the infuriating Renaissance history behind the silence in aisle.
We discarded direct translation, learning to protect negative face by upgrading blunt demands into polite inquiries using "could I get?" and mastering the spatial distinction between a door and a gate.
And finally, we saw the neuroscience of visualization in action during a flawless mental dress rehearsal. Now, before we close, it is important to note that Barking English is not abandoning you at Gate B12.
No, Leo and Mia tease that their subsequent session will tackle surviving a long flight, which introduces an entirely new set of linguistic scripts.
That will be vital for learners. They will cover the nuances of interacting with flight attendants, the polite syntax for requesting water or blankets, and the delicate art of lodging a complaint if your entertainment screen is malfunctioning.
But for our current session, we have a practical application for you.
Yes, Leo and Mia threw down a gauntlet to their audience, and we are handing it directly to you. Are you team window seat or are you team aisle seat? And critically, why?
We challenge you to take the modal verbs and vocabulary we analyzed today and construct your own argument in English.
Do you prioritize the aesthetics of the clouds or the bodily autonomy of the aisle? Build that defense in your mind.
It is the perfect low-stakes environment to practice your new structural tools.
As we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with a much broader concept to ponder. We spent this entire session meticulously dissecting the ecosystem of an airport. We proved that if you can conquer a highly stressful, high-stakes environment simply by identifying and memorizing its underlying predictable loop, it forces you to look at the rest of your life differently.
The implications of script theory extend into every facet of public life.
Exactly. Think about the chaotic, anxiety-inducing interactions you face every day, whether you are grappling with a second language or operating in your native tongue. The rapid-fire chaos of ordering food at a busy deli.
Right.
The tense negotiation of a price at an open-air market. The exhausting labyrinth of calling customer service to dispute a bill. How many of those terrifying, overwhelming situations could be instantly neutralized if we just paused, lowered our cognitive load, and took the time to uncover the hidden script beneath the noise?
It's a game changer.
It really is. Because ultimately, when you walk through the sliding doors onto the brightly lit stage of the world, the lights do not have to blind you. You just have to know your lines.